In Fallout Brotherhood of Steel, there is this church. Their idol, a statue of the Vault Boy that violently discharges radiation. The ghouls built this shrine in a desperate plea to a savior who betrayed them. Their cries are met with even more punishment, until one day, that punishment, the very thing they feared, is what gives them life. It's a surprisingly good Fallout moment, a reflection on how mindlessly worse being a large organization that doesn't even know you exist is both self-destructive and nurtures a one-sided dependency. It hammers home the themes of human resilience, fanaticism, and the carelessness of elites. Placing the idea of someone whose sole goal is profit in the place of a god combines the bleakness and silliness the franchise is known for. Years before Bethesda took over the IP and really leaned into the anti-corporation shtick. Anyway, let's talk about the other Fallout.
Almost heaven, West Virginia, Blue Ridge Mountain.
So, Fallout 76 never got good. What do I mean by that? Well, if you're a newcomer to the game, you likely entered because you saw or personally posted something to the effect of, "Wow, I heard this game was bad, but I guess it's good now." Sometimes accompanied with the "always was" of an old player. And it's true. When legacy players say the game was always good, they really do have a point. To make my case, let me gush about my favorite locale, the Ash Heap. As you may have guessed from the name, the Ash Heap is an old mining town that is quite gray, with splotches of orange dotted around, mostly conveyed through fire. The visual metaphor becomes obvious and striking at night. The entire region is one giant lump of burning coal. The entire land is scarred through and through, with massive steel leviathans disrupting the skyline. This juicy morsel immediately locks in the player's attention, as well as serving the lore and thematic messaging of the land. How the lust for gold caused the mining companies to dig too greedily and too deep, permanently disfiguring this side of West Virginia. What's been done to the land is not the greatest crime, however. It's what has been done to the people. The denizens themselves have morphed like the land. They adapt to living underground and never breathing fresh air, content to raid to survive. The chapter of the Responders, a local helpful survival group, tasked with delving into this area are known as Fire Breathers. The name's true meaning is not fully developed until you descend into the mines. Upon entering the mines, the scant orange concentrates and grows thicker along with the smoke, until you realize you are descending into hell. And if all of this was somehow too subtle, there are not one, but two Tennessee Ernie Ford songs that hammer home the intention, showing how the rampant greed of mining companies created an actual hell on earth. This is all core game stuff. Part of what I mean when I say the game never got good, it was already good. Sure, there were awful, horrendous bugs on launch, but it's not like that part has changed all that much. If you like it now, there's a good chance you would have liked it at launch, and besides, bugs aren't the sole deciding factor in what makes games bad. If that were the case, New Vegas would be genuinely awful, and Brotherhood of Steel would be top tier. We really care about fun and artistic presentation, both of which you can certainly find here. What I've covered so far is just a small slice. The entire game is spread throughout with this sort of attention to detail. The whole world exists as this balance between the natural beauty of West Virginia and the mistreatment of its land and people. This is sung to you through the radios, read to you on holotapes, and even the color orange tells you this. The balance with orange and other colors is used in every single region. More natural areas have a more nuanced balance, and more hellish landscapes, say after an atomic bomb dropped, really lean into the image. It's difficult to talk about one aspect of 76 without talking about nearly every other. It's a remarkable instance of artistic cohesion. The downside of distributing your vision so thoroughly is that not only is the beauty everywhere, but so are the garbage fires. An interesting part of real-life 76 lore is how the fans created their own prosperity cult. Now, that's a bit of an over-dramatization. Your average 76 fans nowadays is pretty reasonable, not beholden to any particular misguided thought leaders. Even so, misguided thought leaders were able to sprinkle in some ideas early on that poisoned the community at its roots. The Common 76 creation myth claims the initial launch really hurt the game, but I don't think that's the case. You've probably seen people make fun of cults or obvious scams, but the sheer absurdity of them aren't bugs, but intended features. They prey upon people who are easily deceived or desperate enough to overlook the absurd. By being so transparent in that regard, it whittles out more cautious and perceptive folk. After the abysmal launch of 76, large groups of people sticking around were mostly diehards or people with a poor grasp of reality. With these few sticking around, questionable thoughts start to emerge. The loudest voices were saying that they had to keep the game alive. Obviously, they say, a game with this many issues probably just needs more resources to beat. Therefore, if we give them even more money, then they can put more employees and more money back into the game. Now, even just from a hypothetical standpoint, this is very shaky. The thought leaders are saying that the people at the very top, people who command far greater wealth and influence than they'll ever see, will start giving it away once they have even more. It's ridiculous. Obvious flaw when considering the real implications is we're talking about Bethesda, the people who made Skyrim 10 times. The company Microsoft was willing to pay $7.5 billion for. If they did release a game lacking in money and employees as fans were claiming, then it was a deliberate choice to see what they could get away with. Here's what actually happens when you agree to pay more for less, then people realize that they can get away with making you pay more for less. So this starts a culture of praising and rewarding people who actively buy overpriced skins to keep the game running, which ironically takes us to one of the big counter-arguments. At least they're giving us expansions for free, right? Well, are they? Because if they're charging you for the price of expansions for single individual skins, and you subscribe to an ideology that says you must pay for overpriced skins to keep the game alive, then the expansion isn't really free, is it? Like, let's say you went to the store to buy some food, but car freshener was buy one get one free, so you get two. Did you save money? No, you were there to buy food. You may have only paid an additional cost of one air freshener, but that's still more than the $0 you originally intended to pay on. At best, you got 2 fresheners for half off. The proof is in the pudding. We can take a look at quest trajectory and show that we are getting less quests than we used to, but skins and the like are coming at an even higher rate. Admittedly, I'm cheating, as that proof is with the benefit of hindsight. So let's go back to the beginning, the creation myth. The launch of 76 wasn't just hurt by being bad, but it was actively attacked by critics who were being predatory, using the game to make money. This is where the cultish attitude really kicks in, by adding an evil in their creation myth to rally against. They can start stratifying into us versus them, a vital key of any cult move, the key that allows you to start insulating members from legitimate criticism. Suddenly, it's bad form to criticize the notion that paying $15 for a suit does not, in fact, encourage developers to make fully voiced quest lines for free. It's no longer a simple disagreement, but now you are associated with greedy elitists who are trying to kill the game. Even on a generous day, they'll call you a leech for playing the expansions funded by their purchases. Here's a handy trick, by the way. If you're in a group whose chief enemies are people whose jobs are to think critically and have their work judged by others, you're probably in a cult. Consider what the opposite would be. The ideal member is someone who does not think for themselves or willingly confront opposing views. There are many reasons to disagree with critics, Lord knows I often do, and it's even okay to like bad things. But that should manifest more like, I understand there are bugs and lore conflicts with previous games, but that is more than made up for by the craft of the world, and it should be less like, all criticisms are disingenuous. The anti-critic stance, by design, makes conveying legitimate criticism tough, as you must navigate through the arduous minefield of preconceived counterarguments, pointing out how Bethesda historically, or other developers currently, patch their games more and release expansions quicker. Well, you should just review 76 on its own merit. Complain about bugs? Well, actually, that bug's really easy to avoid if you just play the game right. Complain about bad player interaction? Well, bad player interaction is actually easy to avoid if you play the game right. Point out how people were openly lied to when they said microtransactions wouldn't affect gameplay. Just let people spend money however they want. Talk about how much I hate Ward and wish death upon him. Okay, well, everyone agrees with you, but that's one of the few things we all agree on. This behavior is the main reason I'm basing my point on direct examples from this singular game and community.
The quicker you recover our missing equipment, the better.
Outsiders are not trustworthy. While admittedly cultish behavior is at its worst on certain forums, you can see how this affects the community as a whole. Finding a major 76 influencer who will just make a complaint about the game without also showering praises upon it is rare. I even did it at the start of this, because that's just how toxic the discourse has been made. If I may bring in just one outside source, Cultish by Amanda Montell argues that cults do three things: makes people feel special but connected to the community, encourages dependencies on the leader, and convinces people to act in ways that conflict with their former life. I hope those last two are clear. Bethesda is treated as an idol that you must do bizarre things like paying $15 for power armor skins that you'll barely use so that they will somehow be incentivized to make quests. Let's cover that first part. This is part of the us versus them dynamic. It's not merely enough that there be monsters who want to hurt you. The us half must be saintly and pure. So stories of new players getting help from old players, usually through material goods, we'll get to that, get hugely signal boosted, while all of the trolls and trap camps that we all know exist get treated like something that's not really part of the community. To be entirely honest, I never really encountered either of these groups, the trolls or the generous oldies. But what I always encounter are people who aggressively take whatever they can. As a melee player, I can't tell you how many quests I started as a newbie that were invaded by a high level who crushed the legendary boss, not letting me get its loot, or how my first solo nuke run ended with power armor players running into the rad storm, leaving us normal armors to miss out on the loot. Maybe I could bring up how I never got to hit the Fosnock Mega Sloth even once, or the Uranium Fever rule I found where, if there were more than 3 players, someone would be forced to miss out on the legendary loot every single time. But what's truly important to share is that all those stories of new players getting gifts from old players are garbage. Those gifts are garbage to the old players. They go around poaching legendary items right out from other players, then they realize they can't hoard anymore, but they still haven't gotten that god roll legendary weapon they want, so they need to clear up some weight. Why not give it to a noob? After all, it will make them feel special and part of a community. The reason I think this is important to notice is it flies right in the face of the prosperity gospel, that just giving Bethesda more money will make them give us stuff in return. It shows how many people who have too much stuff only give it back once they have to. We give stuff to new players because we can only carry so much, but Bethesda hasn't. There is no limit to their wealth, so if you give them more money for less effort, why would they just suddenly put in more effort? The clearest case I have for this is, old players do not give out junk. Junk is a far more valuable resource in 76 than food, water, or ammo, but high-level players will have already subscribed to Fallout first, so they can hold infinite junk and see no need to freely give it out. Fallout First released on the day Wastelanders was supposed to come out, but instead of content, we got more money-snatching schemes. I think this is when the devs realized that they did not need to entice new players, but just trap the loyal ones. If not, then the true release of Wastelanders certainly confirmed it. Wastelanders was a fantastic addition that saw a massive spike in players and critical reception. With the benefit of hindsight, we can see that the following expansions would all be smaller and further apart. The Brotherhood of Steel line was even supposed to be 3 parts long, and we haven't even gotten a new quest expansion since the Brotherhood of Steel ones. What we have gotten are more non-cosmetic microtransactions, a battle pass, and so many more time-limited events and currencies. The latest voice expansion brought back one of the most interesting base game groups, the Responders, and relegated them to vessels of Fallout 3 nostalgia. It's heartbreaking to see the Responders reduced to that. We don't even have the Fire Breathers back, but the two most generic factions and the Fallout 1 nostalgia bait were the only ones with story content? Great. And yet, it's the self-professed 76 fans who are happy with this? To see the original ideas take a backseat to nostalgia. Yeah, alright. Let me take another side to say this. My point isn't that the community is inherently bad or malicious. In fact, quite the opposite. I think putting the community who is nice in part because of gameplay limits on a pedestal above other communities, this honestly makes people as a whole look bad. Because every community has veterans who just genuinely want to help Bloods get into their community. There's not even anything innately wrong with being cultish. Alcoholics Anonymous uses cult-like structuring to create a feeling of sturdiness in community to help improve the lives of people and steer them away from self-destruction. There are many in the 76 community who have professed similar experiences, and I do not want to detract from them in any way. I just don't like how such cases are also used as a shield to defend the game from criticism and vilify those who critique. Even still, the sore spots in the community aren't what makes the game bad either. Bugs don't make the game bad, it's the developers acknowledging how bad the game is that truly makes it suck. The thing is, not only are the fans encouraging bad practices, but the game also pretty openly acknowledges how bad they are. I mean the game, not the staff, because I don't want to assume any individual is being harmful, and I definitely don't want to spread that notion. However, when you combine the various aspects we are told, i.e. the game, it comes off as hostile.
You are missing out. You should fear it.
That was Sunny, doing some obvious lampshading of fear of missing out. Honestly, this moment could replace the entire video, but I've been wanting to talk about 76 for years now, so please excuse my lack of self-control. Notice how Sunny speaks in the usual stilted Protectron way. The way he so flagrantly spews not very coded marketing jargon is clearly to make fun of how blatant his attempts at marketing are. An adorable idiot with no tact. And yet, everything he does is something the game itself is guilty of. The fear of missing out, or FOMO style of marketing, capitalizes on the desire to not potentially lose access to something forever, putting things on a time limit to create an artificial sense of exclusivity can make people buy things they otherwise wouldn't if it were just available a lot. Say, for instance, you have a digital storefront. By its very nature, peddling goods that can never run out, but it's just not turning out the cash you want it to. So, later, you make it so there are no longer fixed items, but instead everything rotates out. So you can't even get a nice black suit for your silly video in it. Or, maybe you have a fake currency that can be bought with real currency. You could target a customer by making products they want cost slightly less than the nearest bundle of said imaginary currency. In order to get what they want, now they'll have to buy several smaller bundles or get a bigger one. But then they'll have some left over. Maybe they should get an even bigger bundle so they can get some skins they didn't want as much to justify spending extra money. This is also employed to get you to buy extra things you do not want. In an RPG, you're going to reach the current best gear, and you'll have no need for any of the lower tier armor, or, indeed, skins for them. Yet, it's very hard to get a single armor skin nowadays, because most individual items have been repackaged into bundles. This makes getting all of the items technically cheaper, but realistically, you'll only be using the best one once you can. In reality, you're paying for all of them, but only using one of them. It's just made one skin more expensive, not several less. Battle passes also benefit from FOMO. Either get the limited item now, or you'll have to spend more time grinding it with time-limited resources later. Another day older and deeper in debt, they can even use the bundle trick. By putting lower tier skins lower on the track, they can create the illusion of consistent rewards even if you'll only ever use the skin at the very end of the track. It also forces you to get both power and regular armor skins, even though most people tend to stick to one or the other. The incredibly slow and tedious nature of grinding out limited currency like gold bullion incentivizes finishing the pass on time, maybe even at the expense of real-world money. Speaking of slow and tedious, we can pick up that coal thread again. Some quick history. Company stores were where folk who lived in coal mining towns would spend the fake money given to them by their overlords. 76 has many company stores, so they can have sole control over how much you can earn and how fast. Caps, gold, legendary script, nearly everything has limits on how much you can earn. Only junk and atoms aren't limited. Asterisk, asterisk. Given the game's in-depth knowledge of historical coal mining, processes, pollutants, community significance, related social movements, and their choice of Tennessee Ernie Ford songs, it would seem that they are well aware of the existence of company stores, why they existed, and why they were considered bad. Further examples of their in-depth coal theming knowledge is the use of coal miners as protesters against automation. Coal has often been one of the riskiest jobs, and as such, the forefront of many pro-worker movements. In-game, the companies employing AI to take the job of miners are portrayed as bad guys. Sort of like how writers are undervalued, but rather than give them jobs, some companies would rather just not write or let machines fill in the gaps. They might even stop making large voice expansions and instead just update the reward pools of already existing quests, letting RNG dole out content instead. The understanding of company stores is not the only clear-cut example of Bethesda's knowledge and aptitude for controlling currency. In the Wastelanders update, we got gold bullion, another fake, arbitrarily restricted currency, one that is directly tied into the plot of Wastelanders, where you are able to enlist the help of major factions by simply telling them that there is gold somewhere. They all agree because gold grants you power. It doesn't make sense at first blush. Who cares about gold when we already have a new currency system? While indeed it is a stupid plot point, for those who care to look, there actually is an explanation. Head on in through the Wayward and up the stairs, and you'll find this lovely gentleman. Interesting how he looks almost exactly like a Secret Service agent. He'll take and exchange your caps for gold at a rate of 6,000 to 300. Time-wise, on launch, this would have been about 4 to 5 days of caps from vendors, in exchange for 1.5 days of gold grinding. Nowadays, it's closer to 4 to 5 days of caps, with 0.75 days of gold. The point being that, theoretically, caps are flowing out faster than gold is flowing in. As you may imagine, this too has historical and economic precedents. Buying old currency with new ones at a higher rate promotes the value and usage of the new currency. Basically, the Secret Service is trying to take caps out of circulation and replace with bullion. What a funny coincidence then that when the Battle Pass comes around, it replaces the old way of getting in-game currency with a slower one, and has the option to give your old ones away to keep up with the new season. It's a transparent attempt to rein in free atoms, but also another way of hooking people into the daily grind cycle. Which brings us to the next marketing tactic the game mocks, but full hog indulges in, playing on customers' addictions. While it is portrayed as evil for Nuka-Cola to put in addictive additives in their drinks, the game encourages you to participate in a daily cycle of gambling, allowing you to roll and re-roll the dice to align 3 stars on your legendary, until, before you know it, you've spent your last legendary script and must wait until the next day to get another fix, all with the characteristically low odds of any true RNG-intensive game, luring you back to the Battle Pass for other daily limited activities. I hope you can see now why 76 critiques tend to be very long. The game's cohesion, while impressive, means garbage fire spread easy. I haven't even been able to cover the whole Battle Pass. Like, did you know it was mathematically impossible to clear originally? Once this was pointed out to the devs, they announced double point weekends, and that there would be infinitely repeatable ways to gain score. So, ha! Eggs on the face of all the critics yet again. Except, no, not really. This is just another link in the long chain of Bethesda not admitting wrongdoing.
Oh, no, I have ruined it. It is ruined. No, it is on sale.
Arguably, this is the worst part, how flagrantly dishonest Bethesda is with their own community. Like that time they subtly changed the year-long roadmap without telling anyone, and then when they were caught just going, whoopsie, haha, and then amending the article slightly. Then there's the ones that more directly impact gameplay. The game seemed pretty frustrated with players shredding the Scorch Beast Queen, the final boss of the game, and went about nerfing players' abilities to fight it. One case was by taking away the player's ability to cripple her wings so that they couldn't force her to land. The PR team said it was a bug that was intended to be patched. While it did end up getting patched, claiming it was just a bug is effectively gaslighting. You see, 76 has a strong data mining community since Bethesda Game Studios' engine has been modded for decades now. So it was clear that she had a specific perk attached to her that made her immune to limb damage, literally telling us to reject the evidence of our community and eyes. While it is amusing to imagine some Bethesda intern accidentally slipping and creating a perk that makes it so the final boss and only the final boss can't have crippled limbs, and accidentally passing it through a patch, claiming that that is actually the case is frankly one of the most dishonest responses possible. Again, not blaming anyone specific, but the end result of the game feels openly dishonest. Around that time, they also changed her ability to make it so she took 50% damage from attacks into one that makes it so she only takes 30% damage, while claiming that the patch actually made it so she took 70% damage. Was this a mistake? Maybe. I mean, these people just rolled out a patch that removed a fundamental game mechanic from the fight to make it harder, but they also rolled out Steel Dawn early, and then didn't update the trailer's release date either, so the launch trailer was pretty late. Of course, the patch to fix this queen took several months, but at about the same time, there was a mask that gave you a random legendary effect. Apparently, this was also an intern's mistake, but that got patched out within like a few weeks. Interesting how the one that might affect cosmetic mask purchases gets fixed way quicker. Ooh, or there was that time when they accidentally added DMCS style switching in the game because the Gauss shotgun was more powerful in third person, while the auto axe is more powerful in first person. But now the shotgun is patched, so if that wasn't intentional, why hasn't the auto axe been patched? Does a weapon have to be bugged for 3 years to get patched? That explains the flammer, I guess. It can be really difficult to tell when they're actually messing up or just saying that. Possibly the team doesn't know. Maybe communication is poor. Who knows? But the constant confusion surrounding patches has led to even more positive 76 readers to say, we have no idea what is actually intended by Bethesda. Bethesda works in mysterious ways. And that's the other part of what I mean when I say the game hasn't done good. No amount of quality, writing, gameplay, world design can make up for a game that outwardly lies and cheats you, with a fan base that enables it. The game can never truly be good, because that's not just a measure of quality, but a measure of morals. And 76 hates us. So why did I finally make the video? Well, finding out they removed my style switching for one, seeing the Discord start to flare up again, reigniting my guilt for never finishing a project like this, but honestly, I think the FOMO finally did me in. I can no longer see myself rejoining my comrades. And yeah, I guess I've finally come to the fact that I need to move on. Any big takeaways? Well, people don't start suddenly sharing because they have too much stuff. There needs to be a limit. The limit that makes the community share is missing from the company, since they now just print free money every month. I guess it's pretty simple. If you want something good to happen, the solution isn't to keep lowering pressure.
Weather friend.